This is a heavy one, so fair warning before I get into it. I grew up in a family that was broken in ways I didn't fully understand when I was a kid. When I was little, my younger brother, Mark, was born, and like a lot of small kids, I didn't handle that change very well at first. But my grandparents stepped in early and taught me how to be better. Over time, I became protective with him. I loved him deeply, and being his older brother became one of the few things in my childhood that actually felt good. My mother, though, never really seemed to want me. Once my brother was born, it felt like I had already been replaced. I was pushed aside and mostly raised by my grandparents. In her eyes, I was a problem child, and the new baby was what mattered. As the years went on, the family got bigger. My mom eventually had 4 kids total. There was me and Mark, and then my half-brother Sam and half-sister Alicia. By the time I was a teenager, my mother had remarried, and life in that house got even worse. My stepfather believed he could beat obedience into me. Anytime I questioned something, showed attitude, or acted like my own person, he'd hit me for it. Sometimes my mother stood right there and did nothing. She watched it happen like it was normal. That was around the age when the anger inside me really started to grow. I didn't know what I would do with it yet, but that was the point where something in me changed. Things at home were bad in other ways, too. My mother and stepfather barely acted like adults. They dumped everything on us. We weren't just doing normal chores. We were doing things kids should never have been doing. Climbing ladders, cleaning gutters, cutting branches out of trees, handling dangerous work while they sat back and let it happen. I learned early that in that house, children were expected to carry burdens that should have belonged to grown people. Then came one of the worst days of my life. I was around 14. My little sister Alicia was still a toddler. My mom told me and Mark to keep an eye on her. Meanwhile, my stepfather was busy playing video games. At some point, I realized the house had gone too quiet, and I asked where Alicia was. The second I said it, panic hit everybody. We searched everywhere. Me and Mark tore through the house, then outside, then back in again. We were frantic. And then we heard screaming. My mother found Alicia outside near the deck, not breathing. CPR was started. An ambulance was called. My father pulled me and Mark away while everything happened around us. And later that night, Alicia was gone. For a long time, me and Mark blamed ourselves. We were kids, and kids do that. Our grandparents tried to tell us it wasn't our fault, that we should never have been put in that position to begin with. But guilt doesn't listen to reason, especially when you're young. After that, child services got involved. My father fought for custody and won for a while, arguing that my mother was unfit, but eventually we ended up back with her again. Years passed. When I turned 18, I was trying to focus on finishing school and figuring out a future for myself. Mark was 15 by then. He had injured his hand badly and had been prescribed strong pain medication after surgery. It was my mother's responsibility to watch him and make sure he took it safely. She didn't. One day, my grandfather picked me up, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. When we got home, paramedics were there. I saw a body bag being wheeled out. My brother had died from an overdose. He was 15 years old. That was it for me. Whatever was left inside me after Alicia died was destroyed the day Mark died. At that point, I felt like my mother's negligence had taken 2 of my siblings from me. Sam was taken away by child services and placed in foster care, and I never saw him again. Just like that, my family was gone, in pieces. The life I knew had been torn apart, and in my mind, she was the reason. From that point forward, I hated her. Not the kind of hate that burns hot and then fades. I mean the kind that settles into you and stays there. The kind that follows you for years. She had neglected us, allowed abuse, destroyed the family, and left me with grief that never really went away. So, I started finding ways to make her life harder. My grandfather was one of the kindest people I've ever known, and that was exactly why my mother kept taking advantage of him. She knew he had a soft heart. She knew he would keep helping her, no matter what she had done. So whenever she tried to manipulate him or twist a situation in her favor, I pushed back. I challenged her in front of my grandparents. I made things uncomfortable. I wanted her exposed. I wanted her cornered. I wanted her to lose control. She didn't lash out physically, but I could see it was wearing on her. She cried more than once, and I won't lie, I didn't feel bad about it. Then life hit her in another way. She got hurt badly at work and messed up her back. At the same time, my stepfather ended up in prison over drug-related issues, and she wanted out of that marriage. After her injury, she relied heavily on medication, and I began quietly messing with that too. Sometimes I hid her pills, sometimes I threw them out. I wanted her to hurt. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of what I had felt for years. Later, she got into a car accident while heavily medicated, got arrested for DUI, and ended up in jail for months. When I heard, I smiled. That probably says a lot about who I had become by then, but it's the truth. When she was locked up, I boxed up her things, took over her room, and made it mine. By the time she got out, she had no place in that house except the couch. She had to sleep there every night, and with her back problems, it made her miserable. I knew it. I watched it happen, and at that time, I felt like she deserved every second of it. Years later, things got even uglier. My mother's life kept spiraling, and somehow she convinced my grandparents to start helping her get drugs illegally. I argued with them constantly, telling them they were risking everything for her. My grandfather knew I was right, but my mother couldn't let go of the need to rescue her daughter. I wanted it stopped, so I made an anonymous report to the authorities. Nothing came of it, but by then I had learned something. Revenge wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was slow. Sometimes it was just refusing to protect someone anymore. Eventually, I got older, much older. I built a life, worked jobs, saved money, and slowly prepared to leave it all behind me. By the time I was 31, 13 years had passed since Mark died. My grandfather had passed away too. My grandmother's health was failing, and plans were being made for her to move into a retirement home. That's when my mother came to me and asked the question that changed everything. She asked me if I would take care of her once my grandmother was gone. She said it like it was expected, like it was my responsibility, like after everything, she still owed me something because she had given birth to me. She had no money left. She had burned through what she had. She had nowhere solid to go. And standing there, listening to her ask for my help as if it was entitled, I felt years of anger rise to the surface all at once. So I looked her dead in the eyes and told her the truth. I told her she was getting nothing from me, that my grandmother was going into a home, that I was leaving the state, and that she would not be coming with me. I told her she destroyed my childhood, neglected us, and played a role in the deaths that ripped this family apart. I told her she would never meet my future children, never stand at my wedding, never again get to call herself my mother in any meaningful way. And then I told her to rot. My grandmother was stunned. My mother broke down crying. But for me, that moment felt like the end of something that had poisoned me for years. It didn't bring my siblings back. It didn't erase the damage. But it was the first time I felt like I had finally said everything I had carried inside me for so long. Now, my grandmother is preparing for her next chapter, and I'm preparing for mine. I'm leaving, starting over somewhere new,